Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. For stage 3 of the Vuelta, we actually have a stage today not too affected by weather, although it looked a bit dodgy at points in the finish. Full of drama from Surya to Arinsal, just over there at the top of Andorra, one of the highest points of the La Massana Council in Andorra. 160 Ks, mostly false flat and rolling until they get to Andorra la Vella. And then they have a 17K climb, about 5%, but there's a lot of climbing steeper than that, up to Col d'Ordino, descent of Col d'Ordino, which is about 10-12 minutes before starting the climb up to Arinsal, which again is the climbing 8Ks, 8%, really the last 6Ks, and then the last 4Ks are quite hard. There is a dipper with about a K to go, and then a steep punch to the finish. So the first GC stage, reminding you a lot of Pico Hano, Benji, or Fanquaya. And I really thought the break was going to win today. I was really surprised, and we don't have TV coverage of the break of the start of these stages. I don't know if anyone's really said, but I wonder who was stopping the break forming, because it didn't form for ages.
Yeah, when it comes to the likes of Jeff, who's in the lead technically with Andrea Piccolo before the stage because of the weird thing yesterday, I'll call it that. He was in the red jersey and his team didn't necessarily pick it up that well, and also there's a gigantic breakaway, so it's a very difficult break to control. There's like 11 riders in it. Caruso, Sutulin, so Tug Buddy. I've got the shirt on.
Yeah.
Sutulin, Tug Buddy for Caruso. Gebreigzabir, Kemna, Sepulveda, Vendrame, Libere, Hergots, called it. Called it. And then Latour, Diaz, and Baroneccia. And that last guy actually climbed better than I expected at the end of the stage.
Yeah, Baroneccia, yeah.
Now, two teams that were controlling the peloton, and this was when we were reaching the Andorra side and so forth, where we noticed that they were keeping it at 4 minutes, was Quickstep and Jumbo-Visma, Van Baarle, and what looked like Peter City.
I really don't understand today. I'm a bit confused because, I thought, if you want to give the red jersey away, you can do that. But then I guess you're right. Like, those two teams wanted to go for the stage win today, which also makes sense. So I guess that's a hint that Roglic must have been feeling okay after the crash in the Martero stage yesterday, and Remco was feeling confident, as he should be, after his Quickstep team did really, really well in the TTT. So yeah, I really did think the break would go. But anyway, it wasn't to be. We don't really know how break formation happened. There's a fly, even though it's end of summer, still harassing me. Nothing really happens in the middle of this stage, Benji. It's a highway drag, false light drag up to the border. They get to Andorra again. Okay, there's roundabouts, but they're climbing uphill for the most part, or on 2%. It's wide roads. It had rained a little bit, and at Arinsal, it looked cloudy. There's fresh snow actually here, but really there wasn't too much in the stage. It was just controlling. I did think, I wasn't sure whether they did want the stage at a certain point. Only on Col d'Ordino did that become clear. I thought maybe they don't want to give Caruso 8 minutes. And so they're just pegging it at 3.5, 4 minutes. That was kind of what I actually thought was happening when they were just cruising up the roads here.
I personally wouldn't have cared about Caruso in the breakaway. I don't think he would either. But him being out there and so forth, we did see some news at that point in the race that there was like winds at the parkour at certain spots. For example, at the finish line, because we saw this video online. I think Eurosport also put it online as well, where there were umbrellas, like giant umbrellas, the ones you have like above restaurants, outdoor places. Those are flying from left to right, and you can kill a man with that, so that's dangerous.
Seriously, like, people have died on the beach with smaller umbrellas flying around, and these were huge, like commercial heavy ones, like probably 30-40 kilos or whatever, and they're just maybe less than that, but they're just flying about and terrifying, to be honest. And it's like, well, if the wind is like that up there when they're finishing, that's also too dangerous. Luckily, and it wasn't windy here for once, but it's a lot lower, but luckily it calmed down and everyone got the hoardings up at the finish, because it's unpredictable up there. It was reported gusts. The gusts went away. Anyway, we get to the first major climb of the day, Col d'Ordino, and it's Caruso, Kemna, Sepulveda going clear. Gebreigzabir was kind of yo-yoing. The rest of the break is pretty much gone. Actually, Jon Baroneccia was hanging about for a little bit. And DSM took up arms, Benji.
Yes.
I don't really know why. I guess was it for that Bardet attack? Because it was Chris Hamilton on the front for a long time. He brought it to about 2 minutes.
It's a bit curious, eh? Like, we know that Bardet has a skill in descending, so maybe they saw the parkour and were like, we want to attack in that descent with Bardet. Spoilers, that might be something that they try later on the climb. But on the other hand, yesterday's stage, most of the GC riders stopped. There was one rider that tried to go for bonus seconds, was Max Poole of the SM.
True, yeah.
And he failed to do so. So
he got dropped. He lost foot. Well, he didn't lose the time, but he was on a gap. He didn't even finish in the Groves group.
He might not be as punchy as the Gregoires and the Crons of the world, though. But on the other hand, I didn't necessarily expect him to properly get dropped there either on the Montjuic climb yesterday. So they're kind of hurting themselves by making the race harder if they considered Max Poole a potential GC prospect to begin with. Because it's possible.
Because Hessink was going to pull anyway. Jumbo were going to probably pull with Hessink.
Exactly. But I do feel like as the climb went forward and the SM did stuff, that we didn't necessarily first see the SM attack. We saw a different man open up the battles. Jay Vine on home territory, roughly.
Yeah.
It's in the neighborhood, eh?
Oh, he does these climbs all the time. Yeah, he would have penciled this stage in. He wasn't able to get in the breakaway, him or Soler, who I thought would have had a good chance in the break today. But we didn't actually see what happened. It's possible he went to the front to start pacing really hard and like Hamilton pulled off and Hessink just lost the wheel and a gap was created. I don't think that was the case because Kelderman went with him, Bardet was with him, and so it looked like an attack, and that was brought back, I think, by Hessink. So again, I was a little bit... so maybe it was by Quickstep with Baggioli at that point. Remco at this point on Col d'Ordino looking like he's got plenty of teammates. Got Jan Hirt, got Baggioli, got Cataneo, got Knox, and himself. So there's 5 Quicksteppers there. I'm not sure if Vavaka was also in the group, but he looked pretty well supported at that point on Col d'Ordino, and really the peloton didn't thin out too much. The Vine move stopped. I think Hessink came back to pace. The gap is now at 120, and we had to run down the hill because now they're on top of the Col d'Ordino just there. We run down the hill because they descend that in about 10 minutes, and we go see, and Kamner, I think, was getting dropped a little bit by Caruso on the descent.
Yep.
Fast descent we saw as well, like there's a roundabout there at the bottom of the street, and the police officer, so he sees Kamner and Caruso hop, so that you approach at the apex of the roundabout, you hop a little pave section in the middle, but it's smooth, like it's not dangerous really. There's also no lip or ridge, you can just hop straight onto it or ride straight onto it and ride straight through the roundabout at a good line. Kamner and Caruso bang through that, and then the police officer sees that and decides to stand in that spot to force the riders in the peloton to go like a much tighter line through the roundabout proper like a car. I was like, you gotta let them do what they're gonna do. So yeah, I was surprised. It's crazy when you see like that's one potentially dangerous situation because there's the high speed. They probably go through, the skill level of these guys is so high. They probably went through 20 different situations like that on just today's stage.
Yes, certainly. You spoke about the descent of the riders. Our descent was pretty fast as well. Our descent towards the race to look at the race in that specific position, that was pretty cool. But it feels actually closer between the groups when you're at the race than the gap that is seen on TV. But then they basically go from that area where you just said, the descent of Ordino, straight towards Chula-Massana, towards Arinsal. And at the start of Arinsal, the final climb of the day, it was kind of subtle piece.
Yeah.
Hessink was pacing for a tiny bit, just controlling tempo, I would reckon. But when Hessink was gone, nobody really took over. Teams were kind of next to each other, and the gap was 140 to the front, where Kemna and Caruso were back together, fighting mano a mano. And I reckon there was a moment where Kemna had a bit of a gap, but Caruso is this kind of man where you never know if you fully dropped him or not. Because I remember Segadiala, the stage where... Was that the stage where Almeida went and tried to beat someone at the front or whatever? But Caruso was dropped, if I recall, and then he came back significantly and still in a relatively good position finish. He's kind of like the tempo climber that is his own tempo when the group falls apart.
And he's also 18 seconds ahead of Kamner on GC. So what was curious was we didn't see that. So that on that climb, all we see is basically Kamner 4 meters ahead of Caruso.
Yeah.
And so is Kamner riding like Thibaut Pinot? Is Kamner did Caruso just lose the wheel and it's not going quick enough? Kamner was stronger than Caruso in the end, but I guess Kamner, he didn't want to just tow Caruso the whole way. But then again, Caruso just didn't look strong enough to really do anything on the climb either. So he's caught in a catch-22. And as well, on this section, I can sort of understand it because it's quite fast. It's 4% from the roundabout to about 2Ks into the climb, 3Ks into the climb. And then the last 6Ks are actually where it's steep, where they go the roundabout from where you turn up to Pal.
Yeah.
And so they go through the town of Arinsal. The gap has gone out to 140. It had been down to 58 seconds at a certain point, according to the TV, which the TV time gaps gave up in the end. And yeah, I thought, who's going to take over? Because Jumbo had numbers. They got Tratnik there. He was pacing, but it was 6 wide. They got Volta. He could pace, and it would shred the group. They got Koos. They got Kelderman. And they weren't really doing anything. And I guess they probably could go for a sprint with Roglic, and that's why I was like, well, why was everyone chasing all day if they don't want to go for the stage win? Eventually, UAE were the team with Ayuso also lives here, Almeida lives here, Vine lives here. They send Vine to the front, and he starts setting a really serious pace. The TV directors immediately on their screen press close on the time gaps when it was about 1:30, and we didn't know what the gap was. We didn't know how long was left in the stage. We got no kilometers to go, and that Vine pace, clearly Ayuso felt good. And in fact, yeah, it was a good... Who do we see? I mean, on the Vine pace, we already saw Thomas sliding, right?
Yeah, Max Poole was already dropped.
Yeah.
So a bit of an update on the earlier conversation there. Thomas was already near the back of the group. And like we said it yesterday, both of us were like, Thomas is probably going to have a bad day today. What is the cause for us to think that? Because yes, we can say that blatantly, but is it that we don't believe he can peak twice in a year?
It's, to be honest, these climbs have always been so bad for him. Like an easy stage, and then the last 3Ks, it's like a 20-minute climb. Then again, on Mond and all those climbs, he's been pretty good.
It's like a gut feeling, no?
It's just, I just sort of knew, he's not. Yeah, maybe in Catalonia, which is this sort of region, he's not been good on these. Like on Volta, I think he lost time in 2021 to Yates, even though he was in the wheels the whole time.
Yeah.
And Almeida was good there. It's just a gut feeling, and also, like, maybe he isn't as good as his Giro shape. But that didn't really factor into it. I thought,
for me, that was it personally.
Well, I thought he would have been training pretty hard. Like, I don't think he would have been slacking off too much.
He probably did, but I just didn't expect it a second time in 1 year. Just a gut feeling that I didn't expect that. Not necessarily like an in-depth analysis here on my end when it comes to that. But it ended up happening. Thomas was not looking that great. Arensman was looking better for that team. So maybe that will conclude their leadership from now on. But it's not completely lost yet, I would reckon. But you said it. UAE goes to the front. We got a massive stage by Finn Fisher-Black. He got over Ordino, was pacing in the valley section. Well, the 1 kilometer valley in between the two climbs.
Oh, the 2-3% section he paced, yeah.
And there was also pacing on the climb before we got to Jay Vine pacing on that climb. He said the Jay Vine pace was really hard. And then Soler moved into the position behind Ayuso. And then Almeida kind of moved back, no?
Yeah, so Roglic, when Vine was pulling, Almeida was already doing Almeida things, leaving gaps. And he's got 3 teammates at the front. He's got Vine, Ayuso, Soler. And he's got Roglic behind him. Remco Jonas is in front of him, and he's just closing gaps for Roglic. Eventually that stops, and Roglic moves up, and it's Jonas with, I think, Remco on the wheel of him or Roglic. So they're all in reasonable position. The teams are all together for the most part, just Thomas sliding and eventually dropping badly. And we see that Caruso's coming up. And if Caruso's coming up, and he'd been dropped by like 10 seconds by Kamna, we now know breakaway's finished. And so that gap of, if we could believe it was ever 140, evaporated into nothing in the space of 2.5 kilometers. And then Ayuso, as promised, as expected off the Vine pace, launches. Koos lets the wheel go initially. Jonas reacts to Ayuso's wheel and goes with him. And this is the most curious part of the stage for me, Benji. Ayuso going clear, 4th, 5th favorite, or 3rd, 4th favorite maybe for this race in the betting. Vingegaard, the favorite for the race, goes with him.
Yeah.
We've got 2.5 Ks, maybe 6-7 minutes left on this climb. Remco no longer has teammates. Hit is dropped.
Yeah.
The only other team with multiple teammates is UAE with the numbers we said, and Bora with Vlasov and Oeterbrooks. And Koos, after letting the gap to Jonas open up, looking at Remco, attacks across to Jonas' wheel, and Roglic closes it as well. It reminded me of the Poggio last year a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought, isn't this
what you want?
2-leader strategy where Jonas goes with another GC guy he can work with, who he's ahead of in GC right now, who he'd expect to beat. Maybe he can't, but Jonas is above him in the pecking order at the moment, and Evenepoel's isolated, and he should have to close in the headwind. I was really surprised they closed down what I thought was a nice duo.
Like, the theory is simple. If Jonas is ahead with another rider, then you want to let the other GC riders chase down the front riders. As simple as that. Because you don't want to close it yourself, because you lose the energy behind, and you kind of lose it ahead as well if Vingegaard starts rolling with whoever's ahead. So you're right. But
Vingegaard's done the acceleration now for nothing.
Exactly. But they don't. And what happens as the following, it kind of comes back together again because of that. And we see another move which I did like. I did like the anticipation then of Kuss attacking that group once it was together again, because then it's a situation where others need to chase. So Kuss is then ahead, and then Soler was the one to jump.
It seems like, it is a good move. Others do need to chase, but if you're Remco isolated, are you gonna, and you've got 5 minutes left on this climb, are you gonna chase Sepp Kuss?
I wouldn't.
Nope. And he didn't. And UAE, they didn't. They sent Soler up. So Almeida, Ayuso, Remco are all in the wheels. So, okay, it would be nice for Kuss to go up and win the stage. I'm not sure that was that's what could have happened, but he's not here as a third GC threat, at least not from the way the end of the stage played out. And Remco's playing it cool. Remco's at the back of the group. He's on Roglic's wheel. He's got Jonas behind him. Remco's not reacting to what he doesn't need to. He's keeping his right shoulder open. He's playing it perfectly. Kamna's caught at this point, so we know the stage is going to come from the GC group. And when Soler gets across to Kuss stops, which, fair enough. And I thought, well, here's going to be the Roglic attack, or here's going to be the Jonas attack, to make Remco do something in the wind. And it never came, really. There was another Soler attack, I think, off that.
Yes, there was another Soler attack off that, and then Sepp kept pacing. Sepp Kuss kept pacing behind, kept it on a gap, and was starting to close it again. But you're right, I didn't expect an attack by Roglic. I see Roglic at this point in the last 2.5 kilometers as a sprinting option.
Yeah.
And Vingegaard is the attacking option if you do want to make that reverse lead out kind of idea that you're referring to. But Kuss is basically...
And was it Uterbrooks that shut down the Soler Kuss move?
Yes.
I think it was.
I think so as well. And Kemna was still kind of ahead of those riders, but then got caught. So just a wrap up of the breakaway. They're caught. They're gone. Kemna, my pick, unfortunately didn't last until the finish line, which is really sad. But anyway, the situation is simple right now.
My pick Soler's up the road. I'm happy at this point.
Not for long.
Yeah.
Because your boy Kuss ends up catching your boy Soler.
No. And yes, Kuss catches him, goes past him. Roglic is not on his wheel. Jonas is not on his wheel. We have, with about 100 meters to go, a hairpin. It's a wide hairpin, but it's a hairpin you can't pedal through uphill. And Kuss just does the lead out with Roglic and Vingegaard deeper in the group, just sets the pace, and no further attack. And it's a hard pace. It must have been a hard pace, Benji, because you would have expected a flyer from Martinez, Mas, Almeida, people who wouldn't expect to take the bonus seconds. If the pace was slow, I would expect them to have wanted to anticipate a sprint. But still, we had the group of Arensman and Kelderman coming back actually a little bit. Kelderman finishing with that group. Steph Kras, actually a nice performance. Steph Kras was there for Total Energies. Here just behind was Petrago and Arensman. And it's simple. Remco Evenepoel sees that Roglic isn't on his wheel, sees it's Vingegaard. He sees Roglic is on the other side of the group, which is about 10 deep, so you can get boxed in. And he goes up to the outside, looks, Kuss is slowed down a little bit, and just launches in the hoods, basically sprinting through the bend and sprinting to that next hairpin. Vingegaard's on his wheel, but doesn't have the punch of Remco. Roglic, he's caught behind Ayuso and Soler. Soler drops the wheel a bit. Plus, I think Roglic bungled that corner, and also Remco was too good.
Yep.
And Remco just straight up in the face of the two Jumbo guys and the two UAE guys torches everybody and says thanks very much for the stage win.
Yeah, he torched him in the sprint. Then it's like, yes, Primoz was out of position before the sprint starts, I would have been very curious to see what the 1v1 sprint would have been like. I'm really curious to see how they level against each other, because an Remco sprint is really bloody good these days. And I reckon it's closer to Roglic than people think, if not on the same level. I dare to say it's on the same level as Roglic, especially on the flat ones, I reckon.
Yes, definitely on the flat. I think on the flat, Remco's peak, like 10 seconds, is pretty similar.
Yeah.
I think in a 30-second sprint on like 10%, or at the end of a climb. I mean, Catalonia's a long time ago, like on low port. That's a complete.
It's also tactical,
that's a different kind of result. But yeah, also Roglic is never winning from that position. But I also don't think. I think if he had brilliant legs, he doesn't finish fourth. He comes over the top of Ayuso, or who's not a slouch, but I think he wasn't really moving up positions either.
Bonus seconds matter, eh? Because like if he gets third instead of fourth, that's extra bonus seconds. And now Remco ended up torching everybody. But that's not going to be the topic of the discussion here. It was a good sprint. Bonus seconds 10 for Remco. That's going to be very valuable.
And a second on the road.
Exactly. And when it comes to the other riders in the race, we've got Vingegaard taking 6 seconds on Roglic. It's kind of weird to say, but it's true. And Juan Ayuso also takes 4 bonus seconds. So those 3 benefit from the line. But Remco crosses the line and, spoilers, he ends up crashing into what seems to be a soigneur. But I have difficulties pointing at who is to blame in this situation.
So Remco crosses the line, celebrated as we told him to do in the interview.
Oops.
Full-on celebration. But then he goes for a second celebration. Like he does like a second celebration after the line with his hands off the bars. Listen, I don't know. I would have to go back and watch Fanquire and Pico Hano and others, 8K 8% climbs and see what's the distance from the finish line, like Sierra de la Pandera, from the finish line to where the soigneurs and stuff is, because up and Aerosol, it's a dead end. So there's no runoff. It's just barriers. And maybe Remco thought there was a runoff somewhere, but he basically, I don't know, he must have braked in the end, but it was too late. He doesn't brake for a long time, and there's just a throng of people really close, and he just hits this woman super hard. I don't know if he hit the barriers. He goes down flat, so really hard.
He ends up riding into the woman, kind of goes off her into the floor, and how I see it is that his glasses break as he hits the floor, and I think that's how he gets the blood on the side of his face. I don't know if that's because of the floor, if the glasses were already off, or whether the breaking glasses caused that. I just hope that he doesn't have a concussion, because it would be really fucking annoying if he leaves this Vuelta because of a concussion after leaving the Giro with COVID. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, he looked a bit uneasy on his feet going into the trailer, but maybe that also just could be from being tired after the finish and a full gas sprint. When he was probably at resting heart rate, he looked like he did it so easy. So hopefully he's fine. Yeah, like I cannot deal with any more shenanigans in this race. I will say, like, if they finish this, it basically finished on a downhill. Yeah. And I'm not talking a descent. I'm just saying 20 to 15 meters before it properly crests, and it's not flat afterwards. It actually goes into a proper downhill section. And so Remco sprinting through the line started carrying a lot of speed.
But is the corner too close then to the finish? You got all these questions, eh?
I mean, it's an 8K, 8% climb with another climb preceding it. We're not talking like a proper sprint finish here. Like, if Remco celebrated and then started braking immediately, like no one else crashed.
So, looking advocate of the devil at the situation from my end, let's look at first of all, I also hope that the woman involved is not injured. We can talk about, people will blame her as well. Some people will blame her. Some people will blame Remco. Some people will blame their organization. And on the woman's end, I also feel like there were so many photographers on her ride that she also couldn't see Remco, especially
she couldn't see
coming.
Anything.
But that being said, if I'm after a finish line, I try to be as aware as possible that riders can be coming, and I don't want to be anywhere near where riders can be. But she's a soigneur, so she needs to be there. So it's really risky.
But the other people around her weren't moving fast either. Like, she was kind of the last domino, and they moved, and she,
could have been every single one of them.
Yeah, it could have been any one of them. I don't think she necessarily did anything particularly wrong at all. She just caught in the crossfire, and it's just a bad confluence of events, and it's just the third one in 3 days. So, yeah, this one is not as an egregious of organizer error as making them do a TTT in the dark.
Yeah, but it sucks for the race. And does it suck more for the race? You reckon that it's because a GC rider is involved?
Yeah, and also Remco won't be happy, so he'll definitely make his feelings known pretty publicly.
He already spoke about it in Holland, so het laatste nieuws, Belgian newspaper.
Wait, why are you crediting them? Are they one of the ones that did credit the interview properly?
They ended up putting the video in after I ended up asking them
we'll
to.
do the right thing, even though the mainstream quote unquote journalists, they struggle to do that themselves, even though they're, they have their journalism standards. Go on.
So Remco said, pardon my words, it hangs out of my balls. In Flemish, that's
what does that mean?
Het hangt mijn kloten uit, which that's the translation.
They say that in the Netherlands, Luke.
Look, answer.
They don't say that it hangs by your balls. Yeah, well, okay. What does that mean?
That it's enough. I can't handle it anymore. Fuck it all.
Oh, really?
That kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of it. I love how nobody's hearing what Luke is saying.
Oh no, he just confirmed that it's a Flemish thing. Yeah, I can understand. He's had stage 1 disaster, stage 2 could have been a disaster, and yeah, now he crashes and cuts his head open. So I hope he's okay. I'll read out the results. Evenepoel wins the stage. Vingegaard second. He was on Remco's wheel. He got gapped in the sprint, but was best of the rest. Ayuso third, beats Roglic. So Vingegaard, as Benji said, takes 6 bonus seconds. Ayuso 4. Roglic 4th. Soler 5th. Very, very good performance from Marc Soler. I wish he'd been in the breakaway. Maybe he does too. Enric Mas 6th. Lenny Martinez, a very nice result, 7th. Uterbrooks 8th. Almeida 9th. Vlasov 10th. And Kelderman actually came back and finishes in that group. Vine on 10 seconds.
Oh, after working like that.
Yeah. So he's still there on GC effectively.
He's better than every single Ineos rider.
That's mad. After dropping them, they didn't want to maybe sign him a couple of years ago or last year.
Yeah.
Obviously they had other things in mind. Steph Kraus, as I said, nice there. And Koos did the lead up, Benji, and loses 13 seconds because of it. So a little bit curious, because the Koos, I mean, yeah, maybe you'd expect Roglic to do a little bit better. I would expect Roglic actually to do a little bit better than he did in that sprint.
GC Kuss is not being respected enough.
Oh, well, he got to attack and go for the stage.
GC Kuss is not being respected enough. After 3 Grand Tours, he should be getting a full lead out by Roglic and Vingegaard. That is the petition I'm signing. It's bullshit, but it would be funny.
Would you expect Jonas to beat Remco in that finish if Remco equally gets to sit in the wheel for the last K of Koos doing the lead out? I would never expect Jonas to beat Remco.
Oh, of course.
So kind of you should just roll attacks again or do reverse, like let Wilco come back. Wilco is coming back.
Roglic is in a better position.
Yeah, exactly. Don't put with Roglic in that position. He also, Remco moved himself up and torched everybody in the wheel from 200 meters to go.
Yeah, but what I mean is, for example, Kuss, Jonas, whatever, what has been more beneficial? Sprinting with both Vingegaard and Roglic and getting 6 seconds and 0 seconds, or having Jonas lead out Roglic and getting potentially 10 seconds over other riders?
Or attacking, or having Koos actually move them up, or I don't know. But clearly it's not going to be a walk in the park to just beat Remco in all the uphill finishes before the serious mountain stages. But in terms of the big losers of today, we were right for once. Thomas loses 47 seconds with Bernal. Arensman loses 21 seconds, so not the start Ineos would have wanted. Carthy also loses 114 and Blanda 129, so that will probably continue to get worse, I would say. Rubio lost a lot of time too. In terms of GC, Evenepoel moves into the red jersey, 5 seconds ahead of Mas. Lenny Martinez in third on 11 seconds. Vingegaard up to 4th on 31. Vlasov and Uterbrooks on 33, because obviously they're on the same team and haven't taken any bonies. Bardet on 35 with Butrago, and then Kelderman and Roglic on 37 seconds. Ayuso, despite being good today, I mean, the TTT results, you can say it was a disaster, and, those seconds, the time still counts. And so UAE, they're on a 38, 42-second hole with Ayuso, with Soler and Almeida right now. And that's, putting it to bed there. They're going to have to find that time somewhere.
Daniel Friebe also mentioned that Remco after his crash said, "I've lost some flesh and meat from my head, but that's good for the uphills."
Jesus, I'm not sure about
funny.
that. Maybe. Anyway, we'll draw a bow on this stage. I mean, what can we learn from this, Benji?
That if you win a stage, break.
Break, yeah. Yeah, but we told him celebrate.
Fuck. It's our fault.
It wasn't a good celebration. It was like a easy done, light work. And he did a recon of this stage when he was at altitude.
I want the Michael Jackson move back.
Yeah, he needs to bring back that. Hopefully, and then, have
in the time trial, 50 meters before the finish line.
That would be crazy if he did in a time trial in the middle of a Grand Tour. What have Jumbo learned from this?
I reckon there are some scenarios where they can look at. For example, the scenario you mentioned, for example, where when Jonas responds to someone that they don't need to be closing with Primoz and with Sepkas for a Remco, for example. You want to put Remco in the spot that they need to close that down themselves.
Yeah.
Because that's how you really benefit from those situations. And maybe think about the balance between what's more valuable. Tempo of fighting for the stage when with Roglic, when it comes to more bonus seconds of sprinting with both. Is that disrespectful to Jonas? Will Jonas like that? I don't know. It's a whole discussion internally. They probably mentioned this already and discussed it already, but that's also one of the topics that could be brought up. But in the end, look at the next couple of stages and try and win it.
Yeah, well, I think the next stage it leaves Andorra from the city and it goes all the way back down to the coast where it came from this morning, from Andorra la Vella to Tarragona, mostly downhill. There's a couple of warm-up climbs. They shouldn't bother the scorers or any of the sprinters even. I don't see any sprinter getting dropped on 4.5Ks, 5.6%, 30Ks from the finish unless they're in really shocking shape. And Milano did crash yesterday, but even he and some of the other heavier guys, they really should make that. And then the finish is a little bit tricky. It's on the coast, mostly straight in the run into Tarragona, but it's slightly uphill. It is uphill. I'm going to go with Groves. I think I picked Milano in the preview, but Groves looked very, very good yesterday, so I'll hedge my bets in that way. I can't be wrong. Because sure, I'd be very surprised if anyone but Milano or Groves won this sprint, Benji.
Okay, Mateusz Govekar.
It's a nice pick. He was good in the Dauphiné, as you said in the preview. There's also Lecoq. Brian Coquard loves an uphill sprint, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is a little bit more open than we think. Maybe Romain Bardet, who's...
we forgot to mention his attack, didn't we?
I think you said he attacked on Nordino and then and Kelderman went with him and it got closed down by Baggioli. But we'll see that sprint tomorrow. And that's about it, really. Hopefully Remco's okay.
Yeah.
That's the big takeaway, really. And of course there weren't big gaps today, but hopefully he's okay because we got another mountaintop finish on Havalambre on Wednesday.
I'm just going to be praying all evening for a very simple stage tomorrow. I don't want any drama. We've had 3 days of some drama. Now with the Remco crash today, I just want a normal sprint, people. Just give me a normal sprint.
We haven't had a normal stage yet, but maybe that will be the story of this Vuelta. But hopefully everyone stays upright tomorrow. Hopefully it's dry. I haven't checked the weather forecast, but it should be our first big bunch sprint. And we'll see you with a recap of stage 4 tomorrow. Until then, ciao.